Okay, now we're going to kick it over to Sarj. She's had some pretty severe technical issues, as you saw the little delay coming in. We've been going back and forth. So she's just going to deliver her pitch without her slide deck and hopefully not get kicked out of this Zoom call. So I'll hand it over to her to take it from here. Oh, you're on mute. There we
Thank
go.
you. Yeah, my computer has decided that it wants to rest today. And unfortunately, when it does that, can't do much about it. I am the founder and CEO of Wyrk. I do have my logo, which I can put up if I can have my screen shared.
Sarj, while you're doing that, is there a logo or website or something you can
it's
point us to?
Wyrk.io.
Wyrk.io. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So can I share my screen here? You're on, Katie, you're on mute.
We'll just share the link in the chat,
Okay.
so just don't even worry about it. Just go ahead and dive in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my company is called Wyrk, and our website is Wyrk.io. What we do is we connect hourly workers with hourly work. The platform that we designed is very intuitive in the sense that the system actually goes and finds the workers for you rather than the workers finding you. The biggest problem that we have been able to solve or are attempting to solve is given the fact that there is in the hourly workspace a significant deficit of people available for work and the need for those people for work. But what we have learned over the last 12 months since we started is the people available for work and the people needing workers, there isn't a lack of availability, it's the lack of connection, being able to connect the two together. So, for example, last weekend and actually on Monday, we provided 155 people for the Ed Sheeran concert in Vancouver within 24 hours. Then we provided a similar number for Beyonce's concert. They don't let me in, but I would love to be able to attend these shows for free. And then this weekend, we've got 2 nights where we know we're going to get a request for Coldplay for both nights. And once again, it's going to be call out for hundreds of people. We have in the last 12 months added about 55 people on our platform that are active. And most of them are, interestingly enough, recent immigrants or international students. And the other day we actually had somebody show up at the office saying, give me some shifts. So there is absolutely that whole disconnect between people available and people needing them and connecting the two. So that's really what our app does. Let's see. So the solution, I have a video for that if I can share, but essentially what our app does is it allows our clients to input whatever their requirements are. So be it they need somebody who's a busser, a bartender, what have you, and the system will say, okay, I've got 10 people that meet your qualifications, your requirements, have the certificates you need, all those are vetted, and then the person can invite all 10. And if they need five, the first 5 that accept works out great. They get invited and they come to work. Or if they have to drop off a shift, the system then will send out invites to the 5 who didn't get a chance to pick it up. It's quite interesting watching these shifts fill up. It's actually like watching a concert ticket sell out because the supply is there for the demand. How do we make money? We charge an hourly rate. So if somebody works 5 hours or 10 hours, we charge the client an hourly rate, which works out to, for our margins perspective, $2 an hour. We do not charge a monthly fee. We do not charge a monthly fee either to our client or to our workers. So that's what they're called. They're called workers. So we've got a new word now, and which we are actually trademarking. And how are we protected? So how is it, right now there's a lot of technology there. We have lots of competitors there. The gig economy has been growing, and we've got lots of competitors within the hourly space as well. The fundamental difference between us is, one, when our people show up, they are tracked by GPS. When they check in, we use facial recognition to make sure it's this person that is supposed to be there is the person that's there, that's checking in. So the level and confidence that our clients can have that the person that they've selected is the person that's going to show up with the qualifications is quite high. Market opportunity. We had an interesting conversation with a insurance provider on Friday. Essentially what he said, okay, I've got home health care. I got 29,000 people that work within my platform. Then I looked up part-time workers. There's 69 million in the US in New York alone. I think those numbers don't make sense because I think there's not 69 million people in New York, but that's what he said. But the numbers, we have estimated that the market value for this is in the neighborhood of about 89 million in the US and about 8.9 million in Canada. How many hours that translates into? We anticipate that each individual person who's on our platform will take one shift a month, and that's how we're budgeting our revenue numbers. One shift a month for the number of people on our platform. Right now we have 5,500 that we've added over the last 12 months. We stopped advertising for people to join our platform in December last year. 95% of them now are adding themselves organically every month. So we're growing at about 10% a month. So we'll add about 500 people this month without advertising at all. And we're only in Vancouver right now. Go-to-market strategy. What we did last year is we partnered with a large event company who test marketed our product. They tested it to the nth limit in the sense that one of the issues that they identified with their staffing themselves is the show up rate. So what we did was we created an algorithm that actually calculates the potential show up rate of our people who have accepted a shift. And based on that, we actually send in more than what is necessary. This past weekend, we did one event at the Fairmont. We sent in extras. All the extras got sent home because 100% show up rate. Competition. Our biggest competition is a company called InstaWork out of Chicago. They have moved into Canada. They started moving into Canada in about 2020. We come up against them in Vancouver. The difference between us and them fundamentally is they charge a fee for both the client and for the worker. And that's why we remove that barrier. Our goal here, which is something we just learned as we were going, is we are a social impact company in the sense that we can pay a living wage. We pay our servers $25 an hour, whereas everybody else does not. And as a result, we have been able to join with ISSBC, where we are in the process of becoming the software that they're going to use for their recent immigrants and refugees, because they are being exploited. This prevents them from being exploited. Essentially, what's happening in the marketplace is a lot of them are getting paid minimum wage or even below minimum wage. We want to eradicate that. Team. There are 3 people on my team. Me, I am the CEO. My background, I am a CPA or CA by training, a long time ago. I worked at the Big Four in international tax before leaving to work on my family life, at which point in time I got hired on as a tax director for a US-based company. And I left them in 2012, joined a company called Selex, which works in workforce management. And it is their software that we bought, their source code that we bought, and converted it to our needs. So our software has a 20-year history to and depth as far as technology is concerned and how people schedule people. The other two shareholders, one is the partner that helped us test this, which is a large events company, and he is already opening up offices for Wyrk in Dubai as we speak. He is actually physically in Dubai with our brand new office opening up over there. And the third person is a person who has a finance background. He does not work full time. He is right now on an advisory role with us, and he will join us when the time is right.
Okay, I'm gonna have to conclude you there,
Okay.
Sarj.
I got two more.
Wonderful. Okay, well, we can speak to them if we have time, because we're just on a tighter timeline, and the really next portion is where we get a lot of the good information and feedback to implement. So we'll start off with Ronald, because I know he has a hard stop. So why don't we invite you to provide your feedback?
Great. Thank you, Katie and Sarj.
No problem.
Nice pitch. Appreciate it. It's a little tricky when technical difficulties. I definitely say that the flow of information is better when you have visuals and audio, because you can have a talk track over top. And I'd say it's a little more challenging on this side, having more of a full length pitch that's audio only, because usually that's in the style of conversation. And I would say that if you're in this position again, I would focus more on excitement generation, numbers. Like you mentioned 1,200 users. You talked a little bit about your impact wage, the fact that it's Vancouver only, the demonstration that what you have is working and scaling. It's interesting. Like, I know about Uber Works. That was something that Uber launched in 2018 or 2019, and then it died because of the pandemic.
Yep.
And
whereas actually Instawork took over as a result.
Instawork took over?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So this market, like the gig economy, is not without majors.
Yeah.
So, I know you heard some of the commentary on the last, just the last feedback with Rana, but same thing. It's what's broken about that market and where do you stand to endure long term. That's a helpful thing to try to crystallize up front. But I'd say it's great that you have product in market, you have real users, people paying, there's money flowing on the platform. It wasn't clear to me whether you're actually taking payment and then distributing to staff. It sounds like you are. Is that right?
We are.
Yeah. So that's a very good position to be in. It's a strength that you're not just brokering interactions or messages. You have payment rails. So you're in the flow of money. So that's a very positive thing. And I say though, holistically, definitely try to sort out those tech problems, because it felt a little bit unprepared where you're reading the prompting questions yourself.
I know.
When you're in front of investors, time is valuable for all of us. So showing preparedness, showing grasp of the tools or whatever, I think that's an important subtext that you want to make sure you check off. But that's why this is practice. So great pitch, interesting business, and I'd definitely be interested to learn more. Just seeing the progress and traction you have. So good. I may sign off in the next minute or two, Katie, just because I have a little bit of prep for a 3.
Absolutely, no problem. Appreciate your time and contribution. John, what about you?
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Sarj, does that all resonate or?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. I'm not used to making pitches. This would have been my real first pitch. so
Good.
so it is, but I am extremely excited about what we do, and the fact that we get people not only showing up to our office and asking for work, because the question I asked is how the heck did they get up here, but we get people coming to our office and thanking us too.
That's good. Well, very nice meeting you. Cheers.
It was nice meeting you too. Thank you.
Okay, John.
Yeah, so again, I thought this is a little bit closer to my business, so it was compelling just from that perspective. Um, I
What do you do, John?
I work with a little software company focused on retailers. But so I mean I know the software and sort of B2B B2C space of this. So I agree with the comments, and I think it would really be, what's the information I want to share, and what's the order in which I want to share it to create the right impression. And so I think you hit a lot of good information in that. I think probably not in the order that you would put it in without the technical difficulties. As a rule of thumb, I always like if I'm pitching investors, two big questions are how compelling is the opportunity? Because if it's not compelling, nothing else matters. And then once I get over that hurdle, then I get to the how well positioned are you to capitalize on that opportunity. So that may or may not be helpful. One just generic comment, but and again, I think I'm probably a bit anal on numbers and things, but you want to watch. So your New York guy that was the whatever 89 million, that's more than the
No,
population
he said
of
69 million.
yeah. So
Yeah, no,
the
I
second
understand.
you say that guy
Yep.
totally loses all credibility, and some of that loss of credibility shines on you. So obviously you wouldn't want to use, and even if he said 69 million, you definitely don't want to use that, because anything else that guy said goes out the
Yeah.
door, at least from my perspective. And then there were a couple of other sort of number ones like that where it didn't quite jive for me. One was your estimate for projections is that your workers would be one shift a month, and that sounds like a fraction of what I would anticipate for the type of folks you're targeting. So a living wage for one shift a month doesn't begin to bring in enough money to do anything. So, it sort of leads me down well, what are they doing with the other, shifts per month? And, again, so if it's just
So I think what that means, we need to clarify right up front. We're not providing full-time work. We're providing a side hustle. So I think that's a good point.
Yeah, and if if it really is only one shift a month, my numbers of 5,500 people, one shift a month, you taking $2 an hour out of that, it's a pretty small, I get to a pretty small number, which is fine, but just at an right, back to my first point of how compelling is the opportunity. I work pretty hard to get those 5,500 people, and then if they're bringing in, what is that, $25 times 8, so $200 a month, you're getting $20 a month from those users. To me, how do I get to the compelling piece? But I think I thought it was I think there's some really intriguing pieces in it. The last comment I would have is just, it didn't come out in what you mentioned, but I think there must be a real focus in the types of employees and employer and employee that you're going after, and you want to have that front and center, because immediately in my mind I've used freelancer with great frustration and was quite excited when you started talking, and then it became, okay, is it just servers, or is it, in air quotes, low skills service industry, or whatever your focus is should be front and center when you're characterizing it.
So John, one question I have.
Mhm.
We have every intention of moving up in the food chain as far as higher skilled, accountants, lawyers, what have you, because there is a need in that space. How would I address that? That's not something we are focused on right now, but that is on our path, and our software can do it. So it's not that it can't do it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't have a sort of canned answer for you, but my starting point would be our solution is a platform that can meet all of these needs. Our initial focus is on sort of myopically on this type of employer, this type of employee. Here's the traction we've got. Now here's our, the key elements to moving up that food chain are X, Y, and Z, and our solution. And I would want to better understand. I mean, I think did you buy the source code? In which case, it's now, your own source code, and any changes you make are proprietary to you and your solution. So I'm going to pretend that's the answer. Would be, hey, we've got this foundation, got real traction here. Here are the elements of the solution. Those are the same elements required to move in. The next market we anticipate moving into from server personnel is into X, and then Y, and then Z.
Perfect.
Thank
I
you.
want to give Sue a chance to contribute as well. I know John and Sue, if you have to run, let me know.
How much time do we have?
Well, it's 3 now, but if Sarj can stay, I don't know what your schedule's. I can stick around, but
Yeah, I'm fine.
I can get back. I wanted to say, so I mean, everything that you've heard from Ronald and John, I think are, on point and very, very valuable. So I'm going to come to you from a different angle. I worked in the online job site market for 20 years. And I was part of the largest job site in the Middle East region. So we built this baby from nothing to, the de facto standard in the Middle East. And as part of that, I was part of everything from finding hedge investors, from, being part of the M&A discussions, so across the board. So I'm going to tell you from an investor's perspective, you are entering an incredibly competitive market. So if you are going to look for funds, from an investor's perspective, this is a job site. All right. So there's lots of information, lots of, rules of thumb that job sites are expected to achieve. And across the world. So whether you're operating in Canada or whether you're operating in the Middle East, there's success stories, there's failure stories. When we started, there were 5 online job sites. Less than 6 months later, we were the only one left. So there's a way to do this to succeed. And there's plenty of ways to do this to fail. So I think if you want to come to the investors, you are in a very different situation, I think, than the rest of the she-boot founders, because you are coming in to convince them of a market that has been tried and tested over and over again. So to what John was saying, everything that you do that's unique, you need to shout, like Ron said, shout, create excitement, and the starting point is, why are you doing this? Why do you think, despite, when I started with bait.com, there were 26,000 job sites globally, and this was at the, birth of the internet. This was in the year 1999. So, here we are 20 odd years later, you're doing this again. Why? Okay, these are real questions, and the investors are going to be thinking about this, especially if you're looking at getting funds from the US. The US market was monopolized by Monster.com and then CareerBuilder. And Monster.com had everything. They had for shift workers, for interns, for students, everything. And one by one, they imploded, and then CareerBuilder came in their name, and then Indeed came. So there's just been this constant yeah, have you seen these, YouTube videos of like goats sort of jumping and pushing someone else off and another one coming and pushing the other one off? That's sort of what the job market is like. Everybody is coming with a new way of solving this problem, the supply and demand problem. You really need to build an incredibly compelling argument why your solution deserves the money. And therefore, practice how to pitch, get a deck together, make it your number one priority, because you have a bit of an uphill battle to convince these investors. I would also strongly recommend, if you can stick in a demo, to show everybody how you're different from anyone else. You mentioned a couple of things which I thought were wild, that you use GPS and facial recognition. So you've already incorporated technology that other job sites haven't thought of yet or used. So bring those up, mention them, but do it quickly. Do it so that by next week you have a deck, you've got your strong points, and then it becomes practice, and then I'm sure, there's no reason why, you can't succeed where others have failed, right? There's obviously a demand, there's obviously something in the market that needs this solution. You just have to prove to the investors that you can do it better than everyone else.
Okay. Yes, that's actually extremely beneficial feedback, because I grew up, the reason we're focusing on hospitality and all that, because the company that I was a CFO for, they have clients the likes of Caesars, they have clients the likes of Marriott International. So those doors are easier for me to open, and that's why we're focusing on that lower end at this point in time. But
and I'll share with you just some numbers,
Yeah.
The first 100 employers that will come to you are desperate. That's not a business. Okay, that's a favor. You really need to get up to 200, 300, 400 employers before you can say, yeah, we really have the ball rolling. All right, because a lot of these employers will leave, they won't come again. Yeah. So for you to build that kind of traction, that's compelling for the investors to say, yeah, we've got some mileage. Yeah, we're still going. No, we're filling up this tank and we're on the runway and we're about to take off. You have to get to some of those numbers. That's not easy. And your sort of 3-man team needs to grow very, very quickly if you want to hit any of those, dreams that you want to hit.
Well, interesting you say that, because right now we're in talks with Unifor in creating a collective for all of their members, so their members can be picked up by various different members again, and as at the same time they can also be picked up by our clients outside of the Wyrk collective is what we're calling it. So they're interested in us because of the fact that we have something that they see literally as a virtual union hall. That's what they're seeing it as.
So those are great elements to add to your deck and your pitch. And like Ron said, these are the excite elements, and you need to support them with numbers. Tell me why you're doing this. Tell me how I will make money with you doing this. And I think you have a solid, deck for the investors.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time.
On the Unifor piece, that's a real double-edged sword too. I would think you would lose at least as many potential customers as you will. So I'm not sure on the gain side of, right, if I'm non-unionized, the last thing I want is any associated. So Vancouver's a different market, to be clear, but so of any of the clients I've worked with, that would be a massive red flag, as opposed to like, great, I've got this supply, but bringing in unionized people into a non-unionized environment, that sort of crap. Ask Starbucks how.
So what we're doing with that, John, is we're actually trying to figure out how we separate the two. What we're doing with Unifor, and and unite here is creating a collective in order to meet the problems that their members have, which is properties need them available full-time, but they can't guarantee them full-time work. So they end up working part-time, but there are other properties that could use them during that time. And this way it allows, the properties are actually really, really happy with the concept, because then they can access.
No, that makes total sense. The second I'm in the Unifor universe sharing across. Hey, building on Sue's piece, the one other thing that allow you, so as an expert in crappy tiny little software company, do you have opportunities, so laser focus will help you to differentiate yourself. And is there anything that can make me sticky to, does my software deliver value to my 200 employers in such a way that it's like, you know what, I'm going to stick with that because the dashboard it offers me, or the payment mechanisms, or the reporting, or something that, to be clear, differentiates you from other potential suppliers, but also adds value to them. And then, again, not like restaurant is a restaurant, but restaurants have pretty unique needs. And if you have, 1,000 restaurants versus 5 different industries, 200 each, your ability to understand and deliver to them, stuff that really meets their needs and makes it a stickier relationship, that maybe helps address some of Sue's challenges, that could be real positive.
So going back to the comment that Sue made and comparing us to Indeed, Monster.com, we're not providing, we're not, and how do I differentiate that? We're not doing what they're doing, because we're not providing. I mean, people can hire our people. I mean, the joke is try our system, get engaged, and if you're ready to get married, which to us is you want to hire them full-time, go right ahead, and we don't care. And there are no fees involved. We're actually happy that you're hiring somebody full-time, and we're happy that they want to work full-time with you. So we're sort of taking that whole finding a career and turning it on its head in some instances, but that's not our focus. That's just something that could happen. Right? So how do I make sure that people don't confuse us with the likes of Indeed and the LinkedIn job market?
I wasn't confused. I was very clear that you're doing shift work, but you're still in that same space. And to what you were saying earlier, you wanted to grow to be able to compete with the same sort of position. So you're in that space, those are sort of your macro competitors, but you're still inching your way in that direction. And you have a different way of doing it, and, potentially maybe a different pricing model. The pricing model can change, just like your user base can change, just like your employers can change. I mean, all sorts of things will constantly evolve, but it still comes down to the key premise is, why are you doing this? What makes you different? And why should I, as an employer, use you to hire people? That's what it will come down to, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. On that brilliant note,
good luck.
We're going to draw a conclusion to this session. Thank you both so much for your time today, and hopefully in the future you'll like to continue to participate in the pitch practices. I'll be in touch, and Sarj, this recording will be available to you by the end of this evening, so you'll be able to review and then really perfect your pitch for next week. To try this all again. Okay, thank you all very, very much. If you have questions for me.
Katie, if you just want to stop the recording, because I had a question just on the phone. So if you want to stop the recording.
Yep. Yeah, I'll stick around. Everyone else can log off if you'd like.
Okay.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you. Take care, John. Thanks so much.
Yes.
So just, I was a little confused because you sent the rubric and then you sent the form. Did you just want the form filled?
Yeah, so we sent the rubric. So
rubric is just
Yeah.
'Cause
So the
last
rubric.
year I had the rubric on the
Yeah.
Excel sheet, so it's not the same case.
Yeah, so I know it's a quite lengthy email that I sent to add the details, but I had been asked actually by John. He was asking a question where he was curious and understanding really what the outcome of She-Boot will be and what the end result would be and what they'd be judged on. And so I just shared it with each one of our judges, stating that this in no way needs to be used during these sessions. Actually, in fact, we kind of want all of the participants to come just as they are and in their roles and in their perspective, and to not apply the judging rubric, but it just gave them visibility into what matters in the end at the end of the program. So you do not need to use that. That's a long-winded way to say I was sharing it just to share knowledge. You do not need to use that now. You just need to fill out the generic form and like the 3 questions within the form. Yes. If you would like to, again, it's really interesting, you know, all the folks that are volunteering their time, they're all quite unique. Some apply, you know, some are working currently in VC firms and come to these with their own essentially rubric that they use. So they won't be applying the She-Boot rubric whatsoever. While we also have investors from the She-Boot program who will be participating and volunteering. And so they're excited to practice and use this now and then use it ultimately on the 24th. So up to you if you want to be.
As the
Yeah.
coach will get, I guess, just the forms that have been filled in and the recording as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, founders, of course, will get the same thing, right?
Yes, founders and coaches will all have visibility into all. I'm just working to these recordings end up being quite large. Oh,